Hey, architecture firm owners and emerging leaders. Get ready for unparalleled insight into the development of a world-class architecture firm and a worldwide organization driving the digital transformation of the design and construction industry. With Build Smart, the podcast that's changing how our profession operates. We share the incredible stories behind innovation in the building industry with my friend and co-host, Patrick McLeamy, FAIA, former CEO of the international architecture firm, HOK.
You know, Yamasaki's office or firm lasted during his lifetime. And when he passed away, I think that was the end of the Yamasaki office. Helmut did not want that. He wanted a firm that would live out and grow beyond the founders.
In Season 1, discover the untold stories behind HOK's meteoric rise, from 150 employees in St. Louis to a powerhouse with over 1,900 staff members and 27 offices worldwide.
You know, they weren't as polite as the Kojima people. That was just boom. And anytime you have a creditor, whether it's Kojima or the bank, that wants their money, unless you can raise money someplace else, you are out of business.
Bankrupt. And hold on tight for Season 2, where Patrick takes us on a new adventure as chairman of Building Smart International, shaping the future of digital transformation in the design, construction, and operation of built assets.
Ian Howell, Ken Harold, and I, Ken was my technical representative from HOK. The three of us took a tour of Europe of 5 cities in 5 days. Very busy time.
Simply follow the link in the show notes to subscribe to Build Smart now and uncover lessons that will transform you and your architecture firm. Hey, architecture firm owners and emerging leaders. Get ready for unparalleled insight into the development of a world-class architecture firm and a worldwide organization driving the digital transformation of the design and construction industry. With Build Smart, the podcast that's changing how our profession operates. We share the incredible stories behind innovation in the building industry with my friend and co-host, Patrick McLeamy, FAIA, former CEO of the international architecture firm, HOK.
You know, Yamasaki's office or firm lasted during his lifetime. And when he passed away, I think that was the end of the Yamasaki office. Helmut did not want that. He wanted a firm that would live out and grow beyond the founders.
In Season 1, discover the untold stories behind HOK's meteoric rise, from 150 employees in St. Louis to a powerhouse with over 1,900 staff members and 27 offices worldwide.
You know, they weren't as polite as the Kojima people. That was just boom. And anytime you have a creditor, whether it's Kojima or the bank, that wants their money, unless you can raise money someplace else, you are out of business.
Bankrupt. And hold on tight for Season 2, where Patrick takes us on a new adventure as chairman of Building Smart International, shaping the future of digital transformation in the design, construction, and operation of built assets.
Ian Howell, Ken Harold, and I, Ken was my technical representative from HOK. The three of us took a tour of Europe of 5 cities in 5 days. Very busy time.
Simply follow the link in the show notes to subscribe to Build Smart now and uncover lessons that will transform you and your architecture firm. My name is Mark R. LePage, and you are listening to EntreArchitect podcast, where each week I speak with inspiring, passionate people who share their knowledge and expertise, all to help you build a better business as a small firm entrepreneur architect. Cheryl McIntosh is a branding expert and architectural photographer with over 20 years of experience in AEC web design and marketing. In 2009, she launched an award-winning branding agency and has served as director of marketing for architectural firms leading successful rebrands. Currently, as an account manager at Third and Arch, Cheryl helps architecture firms create award-winning websites that marry aesthetics and functionality. Cheryl McIntosh, welcome to EntreArchitect podcast.
Thank you so much, Mark. I'm delighted to be here.
This is a topic that I really love to talk about. I love branding and I love marketing and I love the internet and I love websites. I jumped on the internet very early with my firm's website. We were actually one of the first websites in Westchester County, New York for architects. Another fun fact is I launched the first website for the Westchester County AIA chapter way before anybody thought that it was valuable. When I launched it, I was a junior director and I said, "You need a website?" And they're like, "What do we need a website for?" And so I just built it and gave it to them. So I love websites. And so I'm really excited about talking to you about how we should be designing and building and leveraging and using websites today in the architecture field, which is very different from when it was when I built that first website. Our world is very different. So I'm looking forward to that. So welcome to the show.
Thanks, Mark.
I would love to learn more about you before we jump into that conversation. So share your story. When did you discover your passion for what you do and who or what inspired you to get started?
Sure. I think I got started in marketing around a little over 20 years ago. My first real marketing job was for the Boys and Girls Clubs of Central Oregon. And that was the first website project that I ever led, a website that encapsulated several clubs and had to organize a lot of information and create a good user experience before people were really even talking about user experiences. And it also had to adhere to some really strict brand guidelines. And websites, like an architectural project, really, websites are defined by their constraints. And when you're working with brand standards, you have to apply that as a constraint on the website. And working within those constraints to make something beautiful and efficient really sparked my curiosity and kept me interested in websites in particular, that part of marketing. From there, I went on to a book design firm and then actually wound up launching my own branding agency, like you mentioned, in 2009. And there I worked with a lot of AEC firms and doing their copywriting, leading them through website projects. That's when I first started shooting architectural photography. I'm also a professional architectural photographer. And so I wound up shooting for a lot of our clients. And then at one point, one of our architecture clients hired me out of my own company, and I went to work for them as their director of marketing. And I've been the director of marketing for a couple different architecture firms. Most recently was Rhodes Architecture in Seattle. It's a small residential firm. And yeah, from there, I went back to my roots in branding with Third and Arch. I really appreciate how I've always looked at things through the lens of branding. And I love how branding puts guardrails around a brand so that it communicates only what is necessary to the target market or to the target audience. And yeah, I like working within those borders. Yeah, so here I am at Third and Arch, and my role there is I work with clients, anybody within that AEC umbrella, but I wind up working a lot with architecture firms using results-driven design to help elevate their brand.
What's the background for Third and Arch? How did that company get started?
So Third and Arch is a sub-brand of a company called Push 10 that started about 20 years ago. Push 10 worked with a lot of mission-driven organizations, but had built a really strong portfolio of AEC projects. And over the last 10 years or so of that 20, and then Greg Henry, who's the founder of Push 10, decided to launch Third and Arch as a sub brand of Push 10 to really focus in on the AEC and to hire staff that was really experienced in that category. And so that's where I came in. I was brought in as a AEC expert, and I've been around the AEC industry for at least the last 15 years or so. And I am helping Greg direct the path of this new company.
Architecture websites have come a long way in the last 15 years. What do you think is the thing that architects have still not gotten right? When you look at the vast majority of architecture websites that are out there, what are the biggest problems that you see that need to be overcome?
So, of course, I'm going to say, as a professional photographer, that's one of the things
Yes.
people can invest more in is in professional photography, just because photography really, it just makes such a huge difference on a website, and really it anchors the look and feel of a website. It helps immerse people in a brand experience and makes them feel like they're walking the project. When it's good photography, when it's cell phone photography or just not professional, then it can actually work to alienate the target market because they're not getting to see this project in its full glory or in its best light, so to speak. So that's one of the biggest things that I notice is just a failure to invest in professional photography and videography. Other pain points I've noticed are probably people working with templatized design platforms like Squarespace and Wix,
Right.
when perhaps their company has outgrown those platforms. If it's a small architecture firm, you can really get by for a long time with those kind of consumer platforms and save a lot of money that way. But when you're ready to compete against higher tier competition, platforms like Wix and Squarespace are really easy to identify, and they drop these visual cues that communicate cheapness, right? And so by taking it to, say, a WordPress site where you have a lot more flexibility to play and be creative and to model the site after the brand, after the visual identity, then the platform itself winds up elevating the brand. And so that's another thing. I hear a lot of complaints about the back end not being intuitive and requiring a developer to make updates. The websites that Third and Arch produces, they're generally speaking, they're almost always custom bespoke WordPress sites. We've just found that the CMS is really robust and the back end is fairly intuitive and easy to train on. But probably the biggest complaint that I get from architecture firms is that their existing website doesn't reflect the caliber of the work.
And I would say that goes back to your first point is the photography really matters.
Yes,
If you're going to invest in anything, start with the photography.
absolutely. Start with the photography, and perhaps more important than the photography is starting with the brand, creating a visual identity that is really strong and is grounded in your values and value proposition and brand idea, starting there. And so our process, and it was my process when I had the other branding agency as well, is starting with a strong research phase before getting into any website project. The research phase can entail a few different things. Our websites, we really like to look at things from a branding and business perspective. So we ask clients to look at what are their 3 to 5 year goals, business goals, and then work backwards from there to see how can the website align with those goals. And for example, maybe the goal is to grow the firm. So we're going to look at, well, if you're growing the firm with more projects, then you're also going to need more staff to accomplish, getting those projects completed. And so you need a strong recruitment tool feature on the website, which is generally your careers page. We look at how we can use the careers page itself as a tool to drive results. And so a lot of times we will recommend bringing in some really rich company photography, people working together, candid shots, nothing that looks too staged, but really communicates the culture and gives people a glimpse into what it might be like working with the firm. And then The other half of that, in terms of reaching that business goal of growing the firm, would be to look at lead generation. How is the website performing for lead generation? Are there adequate calls to action? Are the calls to action placed so that they're in the natural flow of the way that you read a page? For example, are there mini contact forms peppered throughout the site on key pages that can trigger people to take an action as they're exploring your content? So, kind of things like that.
What are your thoughts about architects typically really wanting to showcase their architecture, right? So they want the big flashy photographs right up front, not a lot of words, just photos of their great architecture versus building more of a brand that speaks to the client, and the photos are there and they're important, but they're secondary to the brand message. What are your thoughts in terms of when you're working with an architect that wants to balance those, really wants to showcase their work, but also really understands that there's a value to focusing on your brand?
Sure. I think what you're talking about is creating a visual hierarchy. So the brand, the visual identity, the brand has to be front and center. And so with that comes differentiation. That's the idea of branding. It's the whole purpose of branding is to differentiate and separate you from the competition. So as long as that is being accomplished, then how you get there matters less. You can have a really editorial driven website. You can have a photography or graphically driven website. There's not a right or a wrong way, as long as it is grounded in deliberate brand strategy. And so for a lot of architects, I would say that the photography should sell the work. The work should sell itself through the photography. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with using big pictures. In fact, we use them quite regularly. Even on the homepage, we'll have the homepage beautiful hero image that is just this big first impression, image driven first impression of the site. But then we pay special attention to the headings, the H1, and making sure that the differentiation is coming out within the first 30 seconds of people being on the site. And so that is done really through a combination of photography and other content. We don't want to overwhelm people with content when they get on the site. I like to suggest that people give their visitors sort of bite-sized chunks that they can own along the way. So they're not getting flooded with information right off the bat, but maybe they want to explore your services. So they go to your services page and then they see that you do planning. Okay, that's great. They also do planning. And then they can click on that and read more about what you do within planning. They've owned that next step. So they're biting off only as much as they can chew. And that helps manage that user experience on the site.
You talk about brand first, which essentially will either resonate with your ideal client or it will repel your non-ideal client. And that's what you want with branding is when someone comes to your website, instantly they know they're in the right place or they're in the wrong place and they move on. What you don't want is for somebody to show up, be confused. Am I in the right place? Is this the right architect for me? And then click off because it's confusing.
Mm-hmm.
And so what you describe with the photo is a big part of that. They're going to see that. It's going to share lots of information through the visual, but then the words, you should talk about H1, the heading, or the words that they first see
Mm-hmm.
needs to say the right thing in order to have an emotional reaction through the brand that you've created before you built the website, right?
Exactly. Yeah. One of the ways that we get to that piece of knowing what to say, because you do have to strike a balance where you've got to appeal to SEO best practices. And you've also got to create compelling copy for the site that speaks to that differentiation at every opportunity. One form of research that we do that helps with that before we get into projects where copywriting is involved is we'll do a discovery phase. And this is something that you would get probably more likely with a branding agency like Third and Arch than you would going to, say, a web developer. We will do these discovery interviews where we call our clients and interview them. We have a series of questions that we go through about their perception of the brand. And as business owners and managers, we can really say anything we want to about the brand. But unless the public who actually owns the brand validates what we're saying, then it's irrelevant. And so what this phase does is go and take us away from navel gazing into how is the brand truly? What is the brand? How does it rest in the minds of my consumer? And so we take that candid feedback, and what we find is that after 5 or so interviews, there starts to be this consensus in the responses that points to a brand idea that is shared. And so that brand idea is this simple, easy to remember, very succinct summarization of the brand. And that's what we would use to begin working on the content. Without doing any kind of research, you're really going about this process blindly. Having the content informed by your target market, it helps position you as a firm that really listens to your audience and really understands their pain points and how you can solve them. And so beyond just putting words on a page, we want to understand how those words can drive business results.
Let's take a quick break to say thank you to our sponsors for their support of this episode. Architects, listen up. Is something interfering with your happiness or preventing you from achieving your goals? Regardless if you have a clinical mental health issue like depression or anxiety, or if you're just a human who lives in this world and is going through a hard time, therapy can give you the tools to approach your life in a very different way. I know this community of small firm architects very well, and I see many of you struggling. That's why I reached out to this episode's sponsor, BetterHelp. BetterHelp is a platform that makes finding a therapist easier because it's online, it's remote. And by filling out just a few questions, BetterHelp can match you with a professional therapist in as little as a few days. It's easy to sign up and get matched with a therapist. There's a link in the show notes. It's betterhelp.com/architect. Just use that link, betterhelp.com/architect. Clicking that link helps support this podcast, but it also gets you 10% off your first month of BetterHelp. So you can connect with a therapist and see if it helps you. If you need someone to talk to, consider online therapy with BetterHelp. Click the link in the show notes or visit betterhelp.com/architect. That's betterhelp.com/architect. Thank you to BetterHelp for supporting this podcast and for supporting our community of small firm architects. ARCAT's Spec Wizard is the tool that will help you save time writing specifications. Going through the manufacturer's specification line by line to find the right product leads to frustration and errors. And that's where Spec Wizard comes in. It's a free, patented tool that allows you to select products and options error-free and generate a 3-part specification in minutes. Go to arcat.com, that's ARCAT.com, and try Spec Wizard today. Please visit our sponsors today and thank them. Thank them for supporting you, the EntreArchitect community. Have you ever had an experience where you've done that early research, you've talked to your client's clients, gathered that information, brought it back to your client, the architect who wants to build this new brand or wants to relaunch their brand, and they're surprised? Have you ever had that experience where you bring back the information of what their clients are saying and it's not what the architect thought they were saying?
Absolutely. And it's always interesting when that happens, where there's a disconnect. And that disconnect is really what forms the catalyst of changes moving forward, because you do want the internal perspective and the external perspective to be in alignment. And I had that happen actually with one of the architecture firms that I went to work for as their in-house marketing director, where they thought that their brand idea was all about caring and customer service. And after about 20 or so interviews, it came out that it was really about their efficiencies as a firm that set them apart. And so for them to continue, for them to latch on to this idea that their customer service and care for their customers is what set them apart, they're always going to have this disconnect. Their copy, their content is never going to be completely in alignment with what their customer already believes about them. It's almost like it's almost like a lie, when customers feel or think something about your business and they go to your website and it doesn't back that belief up, it feels like you're being lied to. If you're watching commercials for this insurance company, for example, that claims to have amazing customer support and the best overall experience, but then you hop on the website and it's clunky and difficult to find your way around, or has too much information and layers and it's difficult to find what you're looking for, then that is a lie. It's basically like the marketing and the reality are out of alignment, the actual felt experience of the touch points of your brand.
Yeah. And I mean, we all experience that with some big brands. You get that often where the big brand just hired a big marketing agency, did great marketing, everybody's really loving it. And then you go and experience the company and it's nothing like what they say.
Yeah. And then it almost feels worse, that they would have just said, this is who we are. And then you know what to expect when you go. But yeah, when there's that element of overpromising, I guess, it really feels like a slap in the face.
Yeah. What are some other best practices that architects should be paying attention to?
There's several. So I have several ideas for attributes of a highly effective architectural website. So, website design, the website is anchored in well executed visual identity. It's kind of first and foremost. It immerses visitors in a compelling brand story and engages them on an emotional level. It clearly differentiates the firm, which we talked about within the first 30 seconds. That's through a combination of things. It answers the question, kind of going along with that differentiation, it answers the question, who are you? What do you do? Who do you do it for? And why are you better than the competition?
Yeah, those are very important questions
Mm-hmm.
that are not always answered.
Yeah. And a lot of times, I'm surprised at how often when I ask clients that I'm interviewing for the first time that question, sometimes I'll get the deer in the headlights look, because we get busy in our businesses and those fundamental questions sometimes fall by the wayside. So, other things include an intuitive menu structure and navigation. It should be really easy to find what you're looking for on a site. It speaks directly to the target market. There's high quality content, and responsive design is important, being able to work across multiple different modern devices.
So it needs to work on a desktop as well as a mobile phone, all as one website. No matter what you're looking at it, it works and can be read appropriately
Right.
and is properly designed for each platform.
Exactly. Yeah. And then it serves as a tool for achieving business goals. So those are some of the core things that I came up with that I could identify as sort of key common attributes.
I think that last one, where you're using your website as a tool, is one that architects often struggle with. because
Hmm.
very often architects will want their website to be a portfolio, right? Just a place where you can go see all the pictures of all their projects without really focusing on the function of the website and what you really want it to do. What you really want it to do is to attract your ideal client and repel your non-ideal clients, so you're not wasting time with people that aren't interested in what you do, which architects often experience. If your website's not designed properly, you'll often get lots of calls from people that you don't want, which is wasting time for you and that person.
Hmm.
But also, often they don't have a call to action. There's no next step, right? You need to have a next step. So when you do find the right place, right? When your client lands on your website and yes, they resonate with you and they love what they're seeing and what they're reading, but there's no next step. There's no direction. There's no button that says email us now or call us now or fill out this form, right? There needs to be some sort of call to action. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. And it's having the call to action be custom for the content that they're on. So it should be in context with the page. So, for example, on the home page, you wouldn't necessarily want a call to action of call us today, because that's kind of it would be the equivalent of asking for a second date before you're even finished with the first.
Hmm.
And
Got it.
so creating these calls to action, like if you're on the homepage, the call to action may be to check out the services page, or we've created some thought leadership around this trending topic. And you create a teaser on the homepage that will direct people to the blog. The idea being you want people to stay on the site longer and to absorb the content, to really feel the content, to get to know your brand story. And so those calls to action are really there to guide the website traversing experience, not always just to pick up the phone.
Right. Because if they pick up the phone too early, then they're not properly prepared to have the question that you want them to have.
Hmm.
So that's very interesting. So that sounds like another process that you go through as a branding agency is to design and develop that process of the journey that a client will experience when they land on your website. They come to the homepage, they're excited about what they see. Then there's a call to action that says, do this, and you go to the next thing that gives them more information and brings them deeper into the website, gives them more information. So you're not giving it all to them up front and overwhelming them. You're giving them little chunks, like you said earlier on, little pieces at a time, little breadcrumbs almost that will lead them to what you want them to ultimately do is engage with you, right? However you do that, whether it's a telephone call or an email or a contact form.
Exactly. And by the time they reach that state, they're educated. They're educated on what you do, what sets you apart. You have less to do when you pick up the phone and call them because your website's already done some of that legwork for you.
Right.
That's another tool of the website is cutting down how much time we spend fielding calls and making sure that when we get those calls that they're legit, that we've done a good job through design and through our photography communicating our brand position and our price positioning, the website. And that's one of the things that's another benefit of going with a platform like WordPress that comes off as more polished, because then it backs it up. If you're charging at a certain price point for your services, your website's got to back that up and say they're worth it. This is a higher tier company. And so, you may save money initially going with a WordPress site for a few $1,000 or whatever, or working with a freelancer to pull that off. But there's an opportunity cost because you may alienate your larger clients that are looking for kind of that upper tier.
Yes. Yeah. Very interesting. I love the idea of bringing them through this process before they contact you, because if you do it right, and that's the difference between hiring a branding agency to work with you through this process and a web design agency that's just going to design a great website, is that they are designing these processes, right? They're taking you through this journey. So when that client does pick up the phone and has that call, they're pretty much already decided they want to work with you, right? They've already gotten all the answers they want. They've seen the pictures. They're not calling for more information. They're calling to see, how do I work with you? Which is exactly what you want in marketing. You want them to lead you to the sale rather than just more information and more time consuming.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and if people get onto your polished, sophisticated WordPress site and they say to themselves, "Oh, this firm is way too expensive for me," that's fantastic.
That's great. Exactly. Yes.
Yeah, one less call to have to field unnecessarily.
Right. The faster you can get the no is a good thing.
Right, you got it.
Yeah. Yeah. Very interesting. Is there anything else that we should be focusing on before we wrap up? Or did we talk about everything?
I would just say to definitely invest in research and invest in developing a strong visual identity and brand. Make sure that the brand is totally dialed in before even thinking about extending that look and feel over to the website. Third and Arch does full brand audits and website audits as part of our services. We're going to take a look at the big picture, not just kind of a la carting our way through the process. So research is important. And I think just putting that brand and the user experience forward, optimizing the site for mobile and making sure that the site performance is good, optimized for SEO, calls to action. And lastly, just hiring a professional. You know, Third and Arch may not be the least expensive option out there. There's definitely freelancers that can do a good job. Third and Arch is a pretty robust branding agency. We have a team of copywriters and strategists and developers and all of those under our wing. So we can offer a wide range of services that all fall under branding. But you can definitely get an economical website done by a freelancer that serves the purpose. I'm partial to branding agencies because that's what I've been doing for the last 20 years. But I feel like the branding agency just has such an advantage because it is really looking at driving strategic business results versus just aesthetics.
Yes,
So,
agreed. I mean, the brand is by far the most important thing. We teach that all the time at EntreArchitect. The brand is your first step.
mhm.
You need to understand who you are, what you're saying, and what people say when you're not around, right? And then from that informs everything. And it makes everything easier, right? Because now you don't need to market to everybody. You're only marketing to the people that you want to market to. So it's less expensive to market, it's less time to market, and your website is designed properly. And so brand is really, really important. Before we wrap up, Cheryl, what would you say is the one thing that a small firm architect can do today to build a better business for tomorrow? What's the one thing they should focus on?
I would say being adaptable and willing to change, willing to grow in order to stay relevant. And like we're talking a lot about that right now with AI, this paradigm shift in the way we've always done business. And firms that are late to adopt new technologies will struggle. And websites have a shelf life of about 3 years. And you should always be keeping it fresh and keeping it modernized in terms of the latest technology to further set yourself apart. And so I think just remaining adaptable and applying that adaptability and open mindedness to your own brand and how it's communicated.
That's great advice. Her name is Cheryl McIntosh. The website for Third and Arch is Third and Arch, spelled out thirdandarch.com. I highly recommend that you go check it out because the websites that they design are beautiful. There's lots of information. So thirdandarch.com to learn more. Cheryl, thank you for joining us today. and sharing your knowledge here at EntreArchitect Podcast.
Thanks so much, Mark. It was a pleasure to be here.
If you liked this episode of EntreArchitect Podcast, please share a link to this episode with a friend. Either just click the share button or highlight the URL and send the link to this episode with a friend, because that's how EntreArchitect has grown to serve thousands more architects just like you throughout the 10 plus years of EntreArchitect. That's how we've grown, architect to architect. So I would love for you to share this episode and all the episodes with one friend every week. Would love that. And thank you to our sponsors for this episode. We don't have an episode if there's no sponsors. So thank you to our sponsors. Links to those sponsors, which you should go visit and click, and all the resources that we discussed today for this specific episode, they are all available at entrearchitect.com/podcast. Every episode that we've recorded is there, entrearchitect.com/podcast. Go click the links to the sponsors and say hello. EntreArchitect is a member of the Gable Media Podcast Network. You should go visit that at gablemedia.com. That is the next evolution of interactive media and resources for the AEC community. You can now earn continuing education credits for listening to select episodes of this podcast, EntreArchitect Podcast. Yes, AIA CEUs for listening to a podcast. It's there, and many other podcasts are there as well, and you can listen to all of them and get credit. Learn more about our program, Gable Members Program, at the gablemedia.com/members website. That's GABL media.com/members. And if you are a small firm architect, join us today at EntreArchitect Network. That is the worldwide organization for small firm entrepreneur architects. If you own your own architecture firm, you are an entrepreneur architect. You are an EntreArchitect. With weekly live group business coaching, we have business coaching there, monthly live business training with AIA CEUs, 2 a month, so 24 AIA credits per year, including 12 of those are HSWs. We have them in the membership. Business resources, all the resources you need to run your business, special session webinars, mastermind groups, and a thriving community of small firm architects just like you. Hundreds of architects are there waiting for you to join. So we provide the support and encouragement you need to succeed as a small firm architect. I know that you haven't been trained as a business person when you launched your firm. That's what we do. Come learn how to run a business at EntreArchitect Network. And today you can go join right now for free for 30 days at this link, entrearchitect.com/30 days will give you free 30 days for membership. Go check it out at entrearchitect.com/30 days, and I will see you there. Thank you for listening to this episode of EntreArchitect Podcast. My name is Mark R. LePage, and I want you to remember 3 words: love, learn, share. Have a great day.
Imagine earning continuing education credits while doing exactly what you're doing right now. Well, you can. Gable Media has revolutionized the way you earn your continuing education credits with a groundbreaking approach. Forget running around town and scouring the internet for credit-worthy courses. Fulfill your CE requirements effortlessly by listening to engaging podcasts just like the one you're listening to now. Our podcasts are designed to educate, entertain, and inspire, all in a user-friendly environment. But wait, there's more. Architects, Gable Media is also approved as an AIA continuing education services provider. Upon completion, we handle everything, from reporting your hours directly to the AIA to storing your certificates in your personal Gable Media profile for your self-reporting needs. So follow the link in the show notes and start earning your credits in the most innovative and entertaining way possible with Gable Media.
Attention architects and creative minds, get ready to supercharge your brand with Build Your Brand, the podcast that's unlocking the secrets of branding success for creatives. Hey there, it's Mark R. LePage, founder of EntreArchitect, and I'm inviting you to join my friend, architect marketing expert Jeff Eccles at Build Your Brand podcast. where he explores the captivating stories of the world's top brands and transforms their lessons into powerful moves for small firm architects and creatives like you. In Season 1, Jeff shares the thrilling tale of Southwest Airlines, where he dissects their journey to the summit and distills it into strategies tailor-made for you.
It's important to keep in mind that companies like Southwest compete in the real world, just like you, and face real-world challenges, just like you. You might be surprised at how similar those challenges are to the struggles that you grapple with on a day-to-day basis.
Don't miss out on your blueprint for success. Subscribe, tune in, and let's build your brand together.
You may have noticed that the very best brands in the world are also known for having somewhat unique corporate cultures. That's often the glue that holds everything together when they encounter those rough spots.
We don't do it because it inconveniences the passengers to whom we are primarily dedicated, the short haul, frequent flyer.
Follow the link in the show notes to subscribe to Build Your Brand today. Remember, no matter the size, the journey's the same. Your brand's journey to the top starts here.